First of all, thanks for inviting me here and giving me this opportunity to present my views or business view in terms of the role of infrastructure for making a $10 trillion economy. Right? First part of it is, why do we need this at all? Right? Why is the infrastructure needed, and how is it that going to contribute into this whole $10 trillion part of it? The larger aspect that I want you to cover is not 10 trillion, but if we are going to grow in this kind of nature, how infrastructure is going to make an impact, right? The years or the value is not the important aspect or perspective, it is the role of infrastructure. So, if you see between 2060 to 2040, in the world, about $94 trillion is kind of needed in the infrastructure space. So rounded off, you're talking about $100 trillion. Anybody can take a quick guess of what is trillion, how many zeros are there? So I know that you guys are not sleeping, right? So, so how many zeros are there in trillion? 11. That's great, but 12, right? So that's the number of zeros which is there. So 94 followed by 12 zeros into multiplied by 80. You will get a context in terms of the rupees which is there.
So students are all engineers, they can give the answer in their sleep.
Very nice, I'm quite happy. They are good engineers unlike me. I need to keep myself awake. I can't give so fast answers. So this is, demand is about 4 trillion per annum, but the supply is about only 2.7. So this is at the global level that we are talking about. No India bashing out here. But still there is a deficit of about 1.3 trillion which is there. And for the next 20 odd years, where is this investment going to come from? You see, 50% of this has to come from the so-called frontier economies or the developing economies, and that's where it is going to come across. And where is this getting concentrated, right? If you see, that's specifically in the electricity segment and the road segment or the highways and transportation segment. So, just to step back, what we have seen, X amount of $1 trillion is needed. The money is going to come from the developing and the frontier economies. Out of that as well, that 50% is going to come from that, and 67% of that 50% is going to be from the transport segment and the electricity segment. So core infrastructure is where it is there. You can do the mathematics as ma'am has mentioned, how exact number that is needed. Out of this, India would need to spend about close to 4.5 trillion by 2030, right? So this is the quantum of investments that is needed to keep the economy growing. This is business as usual. We're not talking about a induced growth. Now, a bit busy slide, but the context is out here is why is this needed? You can ask like, why do we need to be spending on infrastructure? The increase in urbanization is the single most aspect that we need to be looking at. Hopefully this works. Yes. So if you see from 1991 to what we're talking about, so projected part of it, the urbanization is going to accelerate from 25% to about 41%. So more and more people are going into the urban areas, or we can say that the urbanization is going to be more widespread. What was urban centers before, what was semi-urban centers before will become urban centers, and people will be migrating from the rural to semi-urban and to the urban part of it. So that would mean creation of infrastructure. So the second part of this growing working age population. So if you can kind of see that India is going to be having close to about 1.03 billion people in the working age. So again, they would be wanting good infrastructure to come across. Then one is part of it is the shift to the service-based economy. As you move to this service-based economy, this is one critical aspect that you will have to have in mind, that either in the manufacturing sector or on the service part of it, when you move across, you need good infrastructure to happen. If you don't have the infrastructure which is top-notch, then you can't grow. So one key data point, and we will see this multiple times in the next couple of slides, is the logistics cost in India is close to about 14%. Okay, in the international market, if you were to look at it, the logistics cost is at about 8%. So there is a delta of 6%, which is sheer margin that you're losing out, right? It goes nowhere in terms of production part of it, but you're losing out load. So infrastructure can bring down this logistics cost from 14% to 8%. And that itself you're getting a kicker for individual companies. The other important part, and we'll dwell on it a bit more, is if you have good infrastructure, the access to market becomes a lot more. If you are able to do it in a very cost-effective manner, you are able to access markets far better than what you would be able to do. So, simple point, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, these are all where the Ganges flows, so to say, I mean, at least in the West Bengal part of it, it's an agrarian part of it. But if you are able to get that produce out into the Americas, you will be able to, the person there can do it if he is able to do it in a very cost-effective manner. If you have ports out there, if you have highways which are connecting to the ports, if you have railway networks which are there, then that's called the access to markets. So infrastructure helps you to get to that access of markets. We'll talk about it a bit more going forward. Now, so this is not something which is new, but let's see what are the kind of investments which is needed. So the central theme of what the next 15 minutes that we'll be talking about, I'm very conscious, it's still okay, about maybe 10 minutes, will be on the investments that is needed and some of the unlocks also I'll talk about. In the last 5 years, about FY14 to 19, if you see the investments which is happening out here is about 51 lakh crores. And on the right, you can see where these has come across, right? So it's in power, roads, urban, telecom, and other parts of it. And who has been spending this 51 lakh part of it? If you see, that's between center, the private sector, and the state. When you say center, it's the central government, private sectors, and then the one that you have down is the state government who are making these expenditure, right? Then what happened in year 2020-21 is the National Infra Pipeline. NIP is National Infra Pipeline, where you've seen what is the kind of investment which is needed. This is close to about 111 lakh crore, and where those investments need to be made. If you see, these are the ones which are there. And here again, the chunk of the investments will be across the transportation infrastructure and across into the power sector. So that's the chunk of your investment. And if you see out here, it's kind of detailed out. Over 80% of this is in this part of it. To step back, what I'm saying is that there was about 51 lakh crore which was done over that 5-year period. In the next 5-year period, it was envisaged about another 111 lakh crore, nearly doubling it up for the next 5 years. So that's the kind of infrastructure which will be needed. So we all know India has become now the 5th largest economy, and we are at the tipping point. From now on, the growth will be far accelerated, and you need to be having these investments to follow through so that the growth is sustained going forward. And that's why you see it was 51 and it becomes 111, and it will only increase going forward. Now, where is this going to come through, and how this is going to split up of in each year wise where those investments are going to come through, and who is going to be the implementing agency. So if you see from what was there before to now, you'll see the center has taken up a significant jump in terms of the investments which will be needed. The private sector has tapered down depending upon the investment climate, and the state has also taken up a lot of part of it. So this is more the status of projects, but it's not needed out here. So the central government and the state government have really stepped up in terms of the infrastructure spending, while the private sector have kind of kept themselves back. Still the investments are not coming through. So that, I think that's the larger point from what was from the period of FY14 to FY19. So what does that mean? So we talked about the sectors which really contribute, but in terms of aspiration, if you were to look at it, in the year, when you have a $10 million economy, what is the expanse of these networks is what is being highlighted out here. You will have a 100 km per day construction of roads. Today we are doing at about 30 kilometers per day. So when we become a $10 trillion economy, this is the pace of construction which will happen on the infra part of it. You will have 8 lakh kilometers of highways in construction, 2 lakh kilometers is what we are doing. We are actually today in 2022 we are about close to 1.4 lakh kilometers. By 2025 this will become 2 lakhs. But by 2040 or 2047, you will have an 8 lakh kilometer of highways which is there. This is not the one done by the state or the rural part of it, that is in far higher number which is there. Not kind of going down each point part of it, but that's the impact which is needed. 88 trillion INR is needed in highway financing. 50% of this will be needed for the PPP. When we say PPP, it is a public-private participation, which is there. Currently, it is only 15%. We saw the private sector participation in the previous slides, where the private sector was, about 20% or no. But for this to sustain, it is not the state government or the central government who can continue to keep spending. That's not possible. It's just not about the money. If you have more people doing the same work, it's always easier to build it faster, right? But if it is going to be concentrated only with the state government and the central government, then the number of people who are doing that job is far low, far limited. So that's why we need the private sector to accelerate this whole development which is going to happen. Then you're going to have for the expressway, it's about 8 trillion. So out of this 88 trillion, you will have 8 trillion. So what is an expressway? Just quickly to take you through. You would have heard about the whole Delhi to Mumbai. There is an expressway which is leading to, right? So these are access controlled expressways which will aid freight movement faster and quicker. Okay, so much of North India doesn't have a port for evacuation. The west part of the country has a port which has the evacuation part of it. So these expressways will connect between the port and where the consumption is there. And hence, that's the kind of financing which will be needed for these expressways. So as we become a more developing economy to a developed economy, you need these kind of infrastructure which will be there. That's out of that 8 lakh kilometer of highways, 20,000 would be in the expressway part of it. The more important part out here, if you say specific to roads, is fatality. It's today is about 75,000 fatalities per annum. This is a silent killer, right? If you just put it in context, on an everyday basis, so we are looking about 2,000 people or more dying just on the roads in India. If this is what will be happening in the rail, there will be a minister who will be losing his job on a daily basis, right? Just not the job part of it, but see the kind of, this is fatalities, right? This is not accidents, this is people dying, right? That's the end state. So huge loss of youth or otherwise people, but to the economy, and this is just not needed. So we are kind of wanting to bring this down as the infrastructure improves. So that is again an additional point in terms of why an infrastructure is needed. You don't need to have these kind of fatalities which is there. Some of the more on the technology part of it which is there. I don't know why this is not moving. This was not my last slide. Let's see. One more time. Get somebody to or in terms of the share of rail. So one of the reasons is accidents are happening because you have a goods segment which is moving on the road. But the best and efficient way of transportation for goods is by the rail. The more efficient than the rail is the waterways. That's the least cost part of it and more efficient. But it's not happening in India. Much of it is happening through road. What was in about 20 years before, the contribution of the road sector in the overall transportation of freight was at about 30%. In the last 20 years, this has come to close to about 60%. So the contribution of, and in the developed economy, if you were to look at it, the contribution of road to rail has a significant part of it, it's about close to 60%. So we need to reverse it, and rail needs to take over it. The two distinct advantage of that happening is reduction in the cost part of it, efficient, time is also saved, and it also brings down the reliance on the road part of it. So this is the kind of one which will be there. What is the average network speed? Today it's about 80. Today it's about close to 40 kilometers and lesser for freight. While in developed economies it is far higher. It's about close to 80 kilometers per hour. And that's the kind which is needed. And we're talking about high-speed rail corridor. For the passenger, it's about 120. All this brings in efficiency, faster movement, and all of that comes across. 100% to energy, to renewable resources. We need very efficient ports which has to come across. So we're talking about 4 to 6 new mega ports which will come up in the next 20 years. Today we have about 12 major ports and maybe about 20 or non-major ports. But these are mega port means each of them will be having about 300 million metric ton per annum. In India today, just at about 1 or 2 of them are there. We leave other parts of it. The other one is on the logistics cost. This is an important aspect which I talked about at the start of it. 15% is what is there in 2022. This needs to be brought down significantly at about 8%. What it would mean is a contribution to your net margin increases by 7% directly when you bring down the logistics cost. The manufacturing sector becomes a lot more profitable, sustainable in terms of financially. Access to market increases significantly. All of that can happen, and that's why if you've seen in the last year and a half, you would have seen announcement in context of Gati Shakti, right? Where you're bringing all the modes of transport planning in one particular manner. The idea is to bring down the logistics cost. So this is the big picture part of it. Why and how does it entail? So I think these are the ones not going into each individual part, but the larger point is what we have covered before. What is the road construction which would be needed, expressways which is there. So we want to decrease the fatality. When you do all of this, what does it mean, right? So vision for 2047 would be a construction of 20,000 kilometers of expressway, 6 lakh kilometers of highways. Today we are at about 2 lakh. We will go up to 6 lakhs. 90% reduction in fatality. We talked about what was the fatality which is there. In the railways part of it, today what is there in road kilometers is 100k for rail, 110k for high speed. You have something which is called as a dedicated freight corridor where you have only movement of freight in that particular corridor. So all of this will be having a cross into this. The shipping part of it is the creation of these mega ports. Your 111 lakh crore that I talked about in this 5 years is all going to be going through to this, and this is only going to keep increasing in the next 20 odd years. What is needed from the unlock part of it, of each of these on the roads, the railways and the ports, is the other one important aspect which will happen going forward in the port segment at least will be the industrialization, and you will have ports which will have industries coming around it, and the creation of those ports will also happen. So this happened in China, and one of the critical factors of success factors that you had in China is because the industries came around the ports and the whole development happened to that. So it's not devoid of challenges. There is a significant amount of challenges that that is getting encountered today. And these are the ones which is key challenges and what is needed to move across. But what is good for India in all of this, the tailwinds which is what we can talk about is all of this. Lot of government initiatives have gone through and multiple schemes have come through for realization of these kind of investments to happen. So either it could be the Bharatmala, it could be the Sagarmala, there is something also called the Parvatmala. All of this is government-sponsored schemes which are coming through to put in money, huge amounts of money in the development part of it. So that's one tailwind which is there. There is a lot of technology which is helping people in bringing this to fore, right? In fact, today we even have a national logistics portal which is able to bring in all of this together, bringing technology, disseminate information. That's happening in a very big manner. Foreign direct investment, and Vijay will bear with me being an infra professional out here, is the kind of money which has flown in the road sector is unthinkable. Just as an anecdotal point that I can talk about, today there is no single, except for one, except for one, and I'm really making the statement, is that everything else is asset is owned directly or indirectly by a foreign promoter, or a foreign fund, That's the status that we are in. So money has flown in the infrastructure sector, in the road segment, significantly. The other one is the NHAI. So other than that, there is only one Indian company which is really taking up infrastructure on the road sector, which is a good sign, So you're able to build it, asset monetize it, and going forward, that's all of that is the tailwind which is happening. These are some of the nuances of how you can make this happen, because you need a good amount of money, you need to have monetization, liquids, and all of that is It's a mode of raising money, construct it, and bring it into the, and you monetize it, use that money, construct further. I probably have, that's the slides which are there. These are going one step further on what are the unlocks which are needed at a company level, at an industry level, and a policy maker level, which is put across. Because at the end of the day, there are bottlenecks which are being faced at each individual level, and those unlocks needs to happen. I'm conscious of time, so I'm not taking you through each of those parts of it. This is here. So I think one of the more important parts, and this is which we needed from academic is how can this happen? Is the promoting the whole PPP public-private partnership. How do you increase the investment spend, which is close to about 20% now, to bring it to about 35 to 40%. So it can never be 100%, but how do you make it from 20% to 40% is the picture as far as the overall development is concerned. That's it. Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions.
Hello. So, sir, my question is regarding the PM Gati Shakti, the Bharat Mala, the Sagar Mala, the national logistics policy, which consists that the cost of logistics has to be decreased from 14% to 10% in short term and till 8% in the long term planning. And the Germany is leading in that logistics sector, and we are planning to at least reach till the 26th rank that the China holds. So my question is regarding how can we as an individual who will be passing out the next year can give this opportunity and benefit from this transition phase.
Yeah, let me give a bit of color to this whole what is PM Gati Shakti's part of it. It is two things one is there. It started off specific to the logistics sector. It has now branched out to all kinds of infra development. Okay. And there is a portal which is called the Paisa portal, in which all of these, so it's a single platform where all developments are put across, and so there is people not overcommitting themselves, are not doing the same thing that others should be doing, or to do a faster implementation all of this. So that's the overall Gati Shakti which is there. Now from an individual perspective, where you can contribute is, and all of this information is going to be made available to public, right, in a period of time. So when you are going to an infra player, right, utilize this information which is going to be there and help with the whole planning part of it. So use the information and feed information as well. Be with an infra developer, see where those infra are happening, and then take action of it. As an individual, I find it a bit difficult at first how you will be able to contribute. But if you are a part of a larger setup, because the infra by itself, let me just quick part of it. To create a 1 kilometer highway, the cost is between, give or take between 15 to 20 crores and above, which will happen. Okay, land cost, development cost, all of that put together. So, as an individual, it will be very difficult. But if you are part of a larger organization, utilize this information, pass on the information, so that the faster integration can happen. That's covered.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Vijay had. So you have a center part of it, you have a state where the funding is going to happen. But still, having said that, it's not a sustainable way that the central government or the state government can be the mode or the single mode of making these investments to come through. You need the private sector to come through. How and why will a private sector come across? And what is happening today, and highways is a great example, is if a built asset is brought to fore, okay, the private sector is a lot more willing to engage there than to take the risk of constructing it, first of all designing it, constructing it, on-streaming it, then to see the whole thing coming across, because that itself is a good 3 to 5 year time frame. So if somebody is able to put that money, the private sector is willing to come and pay a price for it. It's not that they want it at a discount, they pay a price for it, take it and move ahead. So that is one way in which you can monetize those assets and make that part of it.
So if I yeah. In last 5 to 6
where the funding is going to happen. But still, having said that, it's not a sustainable way that the central government or the state government can be the mode or the single mode of making these investments to come through. You need the private sector to come through. How and why will a private sector come across? And what is happening today, and highways is a great example, is if a built asset is brought to fore, okay, the private sector is a lot more willing to engage there than to take the risk of constructing it, first of all designing it, constructing it, on-streaming it, then to see the whole thing coming across, because that itself is a good 3 to 5 year time frame. So if somebody is able to put that money, the private sector is willing to come and pay a price for it. It's not that they want it at a discount, they pay a price for it, take it and move ahead. So that is one way in which you can monetize those assets and make that part of it.
So if I correct you, in the last 5 to 6 years, the NHAI debt has gone from a debt free to a 4 lakh crore.
Absolutely.
Right? It has already gone up to 4 lakh crores. There is hardly, it's a AAA, right? There's hardly any room to further leverage, right? It's given excessively low. Is monetization of those assets. So first is you build a stock, right? So you have
Yes.
a lot of work in progress sitting on NHAI books. But even once the asset is completed, are they able to monetize those assets and redeploy that capital in creating a fresh stock? Because unless and until that cycle happens, I don't see NHAI having the ability to raise more money. So how these roads will come in?
No, you are right. So the year 21, the NHAI went to market and raised about close to 65,000 crore. Okay. Year 22 last year, that as per the budget itself was made zero. It's fully funded by the government. That is, they don't go to the market to raise it. For reasons it is getting recorded. You are at liberty to say that. I may not be able to say that, but yes, there could be parts which will be there. The other part is in terms of the whole monetization. Yes, you are right, completely there. That this cycle needs to happen faster, quicker, and it is just not NHAI. It has to go to the state government. Each of those implementing agency need to put that asset across and be able to get market, linked returns for what the investment which has been made, and that's how this can be there. Is that the only way to do it? I would think we need to think beyond it and not just that, because at the end of the day, when you involve a private sector, because you are only focusing on one implementing agency to develop it, because it has its own capacity constraint in the overall development. So this can be a short-term measure, but in the medium and the longer-term part of it, we need to make it in such a way that the other risks associated with development is brought down, make it more equitable, and all of it. Then only the private sector will start coming into this part and do it. But the immediate one is all about monetization.
Obviously, there's going to be a lot of investments that have already been done in infrastructure, and it's going to be done in infrastructure. So I think the students would be really interested that they have humongous opportunities in this infrastructure. So how do gas trends meet these opportunities?
How do they?
Gas trends. So gas
trends, yeah, of course.
How does it meet the opportunities in the infrastructure world? Is there any further exams they need to give or any skill sets they need to develop?
Yeah, so from an MBA perspective, if you were to look at it, from an otherwise student's perspective, you have a lot more opportunity in terms of planning, because all of this needs a fair amount of planning which needs to come across. So there is significant emphasis which is going to be put across. That is one part of it. But from an MBA perspective, yes, you will have infrastructure companies. You can look at where it goes and how they are going to be improving and do that. Be a part of a developer community. Engage yourself with those developers. Make this infrastructure to happen. There's a lot of pension funds who are investing into this infrastructure. Obviously, it is very niche, and you need to be good amount of exposure. If it is there, then you'll be able to break into them quite quickly. But they would continue to invest in the India story at least for the next 10 years, 15 years, because these are long-term money. So the pension funds is another place where you can go and tap into them, which is there. For making all of this, obviously there is guys like us who are in the consulting field, who are looking at infrastructure and what is the growth. You have a due diligence which should be happening on all of this. There will be transaction advisory which should be done by the investment bankers for these assets to happen one to the other. There again an opportunity which is there. So across these value chains, there is always an investment, there is always an opportunity for these students to be participating in that whole thing. I hope I kind of gave a clear.
So the request of time, I will take one last question. That is, as you see now, there were states like Maharashtra, Gujarat and Karnataka who were at the forefront in country's GDP, and they had a good infrastructure as well. But as of now, we are seeing that UP has 8 expressway. With that, there are some defense corridor and corridors specific to the particular businesses. What impact does these corridors and major infrastructural development which are happening in the northern state? Basically, we used to say that UP and Bihar are not that infrastructure or not that great investment destination for the companies, but now slowly it is changing. So what do you think, what will be the impact on this state like Maharashtra, Gujarat and southern state of the development that is happening? Like recently we have seen that 22,000 crore rupees of business has gone from Maharashtra to Gujarat. So what do you see in the coming 10 years?
Okay, so let me just put it in perspective. Each of these states that you talked about is probably bigger than any European countries. Okay, 22,000 crores is a very small amount. Okay, so it doesn't matter for an economy. Let's like for a Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra. I don't know what the exact number is. I think Tamil Nadu is about close to $300 billion. Okay, so that's the size of the economy that we're talking about. And UP today has become the 3rd or the 4th largest economy in the country. Okay. Just next after to Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, I think the 4th is UP. So huge growth is happening in each of them, which is there. And if you look at these, the interesting point out here, the states' growth are far higher than the central growth. Okay, means that the overall India GDP is growing at about 8%. The states individually will be growing at about 10 to 12%. At least these top 5, 6 of them. So that's one part of it. And that's the starting point in which I started off saying that why is these whole investments is needed, right? This is the urbanization which is happening, right? So if people are going to go to the urban sectors and all of them, it will be at the state. And you see the quantum of investment that is happening by the state government for to capture this. They're contributing about 50% of this investment. This is by the state government, right? So this is completely interlinked. If the economy has to grow, you need to make investments in the infrastructure sector. So there is nothing which is different between the center and the state. At the end of the day, it's the pieces are together, and that's the central part of it, right? So the investment is going somewhere, it is going to a particular state, and those economies are going to grow. So the larger point is that yes, investments are needed. States which are making these investments will grow faster. They will be able to have access which is far better than anybody else. In the next 20, 30 years, will this come down? I don't think so. It will only get accelerated. So the faster that the state governments do this, today in any of these budgets, leave alone the dole that they give out, but budgets about 50% is concentrated towards infra spends. So the state is completely aware of all of it. Today, in context of the budget, if you look at it, which will come in February 1, last minute point, is about 4% of India's GDP is going in the infrastructure sector. So last year it was 7.5 lakh crore. This year I'm expecting it will be close to 10 lakh crore on just the investments which we have.